All right, so here we go. This is week 7, a week in review. We'll have all the scores, the standings, the updates, the updated rankings, the placements. This is the last week without the playoff schedule, and we'll go from there. And we'll see where the Heisman Trophy is and the big games for next week. So here we go. Middle Tennessee State beat Charlotte by a single point, 15-14. Alabama all over FIU. FIU may be a toilet bowl. UTEP 49-42 over North Texas. Penn State whips Bowling Green. Penn State 16th. They're looking for a playoff position. Rutgers beats West Virginia. Rutgers is looking to move up in the Eastern League. Texas A&M kills Houston. Northwestern by 1 over Duke. Hawaii beats Colorado. That was Colorado's first loss. Missouri blows out Army. Army may be a toilet bowl team. South Carolina beat Jacksonville State. Arkansas State 44-41 over NC State. A big upset. Arkansas State a good team that might help Texas State. Purdue beat Illinois by 21. Ohio beat Central Michigan. That was kind of a toilet bowl. Louisville beat Virginia. They want to move up in the rankings. Oregon beat Arizona. It was a tough game. Oklahoma State by a point over UTSA. 6. Wisconsin by doubles up Northern Illinois. Maybe a toilet bowl team. Iowa State 52-17 over Monroe. Might be a toilet bowl team. Ohio State kills Toledo. Iowa solidly beats Southern Miss. Florida State beats Auburn. They'll move up in the rankings. Both teams not the best in the world. Arizona State beats UCLA. A couple cellar dwellers. TCU beat Tulsa in a crazy, crazy game. Texas beat Sam Houston. Western Kentucky beat Maryland. Georgia Tech over Kennesaw. Kennesaw might be a toilet bowl team. Texas Tech beat Rice. Kentucky beat Old Dominion. Minnesota beat Lou Tech. New Mexico kills Air Force. That was big. Utah State, not bad at all, kills UNLV. Notre Dame kills Navy. Nebraska beat Baylor. Memphis beat East Carolina. Clemson all over Coastal Carolina. Miami of Ohio beat Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan might be a toilet bowl team. UAB beat FAU by 3. Washington beat San Diego State. That was a great game. San Diego State having a tough year. Lost all their games by very short margins. Mississippi State beat Colorado State. Akron beat Western Michigan. Miami beat South Alabama. Miami should be moving up. Wasn't the greatest of games. USC beat Boise State. Oregon State beat Stanford. New Mexico State by 2. Arkansas in a crazy game over Tulane, 66-42. 108 points there. Arkansas will be moving up. Texas State beat Kansas State. So Texas State is 6-1, 6-0 in the conference. They beat Houston, or they beat one of their last 2 games, or in the championship game of their conference. Oklahoma beat Kansas. UMass still undefeated. Liberty beat Tech. You saw LSU beat Ole Miss. Fresno State beat Washington State. Georgia Southern all over Troy. And BC over UConn. All right. Going to next week. Let's see. All right, here we go. Don't care about any of that. Don't care about any of that. Here we go. Here we go. Top 25 in the media. Oregon is 1. Alabama is 2. Oregon at Michigan. Wow. That'll be huge. Alabama, they have a bye. They play Florida International. They killed them. They're 2. Missouri moves up to 3 as they destroyed Army. LSU moves up to 4th. Now 4th is kind of where I told you they'd be. They kind of trailed off in the game, and they needed more. Let me get more water. Um, Missouri, yeah, but I put LSU ahead of Missouri. Well, I mean, it was a little close. Oregon right now is a consensus. They're looking good at number one. Fifth is Ohio State. They dropped one to let LSU in their strength of schedule. Michigan, that'll be the game of the week there. Clemson, they dropped one after an ugly game. Georgia is now eighth. So they might not make the conference championship game because of Clemson, but they're looking to try and get a wild card. Ole Miss is now ninth. Texas is 10th. Notre Dame moves up 1 to 11th. They have that loss. Florida, they're undefeated, but they play Ole Miss. That'll be a huge game. Washington there. Tennessee goes down 1. Arkansas up to 15th. Penn State beat Bowling Green. They play Syracuse. Texas A&M is at Auburn. They move up to 17th. Miami is up to 18th. They beat Duke. Kentucky is up to 19th. They play South Carolina. Oklahoma 20th. They play Temple next. Florida State 21st. Kansas 22nd. They move down. Louisville moves up to 23rd. North Carolina and USF. Look at that. And the coaches. Oregon, Alabama, LSU is third in the coaches. Missouri is fourth. Michigan is fifth. Ohio State, Georgia, Washington moves up in this one to eighth. Texas is ninth in this. Ole Miss moves down. Clemson moves down. Notre Dame moves up. Florida is still undefeated. They move down. Arkansas moves up. Tennessee, Texas A&M, Penn State, Oklahoma, Miami, North Carolina, Kansas moves down. Florida State, Cal. They're 5-1. They're ranked here. Kentucky and Virginia Tech lost to Liberty. Um, People receiving votes: South Florida, USC, Louisville, TCU, Pitt at 109, Syracuse 65, Texas Tech, Colorado, and Utah. Dropping is Colorado and NC State. The media poll: Cal, Pitt is 104, Texas Tech, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, TCU. And there we go. So now we take a look at the conference standings, and these are huge. Remember, you play 8 of these, 8 conference games. So UMass might be in a conference championship game against Penn State, but Syracuse is 4-0 also. It would go on playoff rankings. UMass is 5-0, UMass 6-0 total. They got a few big games coming up. They do play Pitt. If Pitt wins, that would be huge for Pitt. There you go, the ACC. The American, which is Indiana, Illinois, Notre Dame is good. Indiana, and then you have Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, everybody going after Notre Dame, but Indiana's not a bad football team. Big 12, Ohio State, Michigan. Looks like they're on collision course, but Michigan plays Oregon. Non-conference game. Non-conference game. If you play 8 conference games and you're Ohio State, I think you're in. They just Michigan trying to get it in, so it's Ohio State, Michigan in that league's championship game. We look over Louisville can still do it. Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech lost to Liberty. That's a huge loss, especially if they want to make a championship there. Conference USA, and one thing, LSU beat Ole Miss. So LSU is 6-0. They might win that. I think they need one more to clinch that thing. And on this side, Missouri is 4-0. Arkansas, Missouri and Arkansas. That's going to be the game that might decide it. Arkansas is a little Mac. Um, Clemson 7-0. Then Georgia Tech and Georgia. That might be huge. Georgia's worked their way up. They lost to Clemson early, but Georgia worked their way up right now. But Clemson still has one spot, and then the other spot, Tennessee, North Carolina, NC State, all vying for a spot. In the Mountain West, um, which is Florida, I know Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Alabama's number 2, Florida, Miami, USF, Florida State. 5 ranked teams. Oh my God. That ought to be good, and we'll have to see who plays who coming up. But Alabama looks pretty solid there. Pac-12, like the old one. Oregon, I think they're in the Pac-12 title game. So Oregon is there. California is second. Washington, Cal got some votes. They're solid. SEC, but Texas State. Now remember, they have Houston and they have, I think, Texas Tech. So if they beat Houston, they go to their conference championship game. If they lose to Houston and Texas Tech, then Texas A&M will determine that. Oklahoma just beat Kansas. So Oklahoma, they need to win, and they're in their championship game. We might have Texas, Oklahoma in that one. In the West, the Sun Belt, which is all the West, Utah State is 4-0. Colorado's 5-1. BYU is 5-1. Colorado's getting some votes, but they haven't really played anybody good. BYU, Utah kind of dropped out. But Colorado has a couple solid teams coming up on their schedule, and we got to see that much. Taking a look right now in the Heisman watch. Abdul Carter, the right end for Penn State. He had 10 tackles, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble. James Pierce Jr. had off. He goes down. Jalen Milroe, 23 of 32, 72, 5 touchdowns. Passing, 11 carries, 60 yards. A rushing touchdown was good there. Jack Sawyer, the left end. Huge game versus Toledo. And Ulysses Bentley, 101 yards, 3 touchdowns. Well, I mean, they're playing good teams. Players of the week. Donovan Spellman, 11 tackles, 5 sacks at Middle Tennessee. Marcus Carroll against Army, 327, 3 touchdowns, and another touchdown receiving. All right, now the games. There it is, the 4 big ones. Oregon and Michigan, Ole Miss and Florida, Texas A&M at Auburn, and Syracuse at Penn State. Let's take a look at these. BYU, Utah State. That's a huge, huge game, and we're going to have that one probably tomorrow, and that's going to be huge. That's if Utah State wins that, they might be in the championship of their league. Temple and Oklahoma, they'll take that. Cal and Wake Forest, that's a non-conference game. It is a rivalry, BYU and Utah State. Middle Tennessee, North Carolina, USC, Fresno State, Utah, Nevada, Southern Miss, Arkansas State. Arkansas State can go 5-2, 3-2 in the conference. Florida International at Indiana. Indiana can get another win. Non-conference, UConn and Maryland. Non-conference, Florida Atlantic, Michigan State, Coastal Carolina and Marshall. Non-conference. Texas A&M at Auburn. Georgia Tech at Louisville. That's a good one. Northern Illinois at NC State. Northern Illinois Toilet Bowl. Central versus East Michigan. Directional Michigan. Could be a toilet bowl. I don't know. Getting out of a toilet bowl. Purdue TCU. Syracuse Penn State. Big rivalry at Penn State. Penn State's got to win that one. That's a big Eastern League game. A big Eastern League game. Syracuse lost to Ohio. I don't know how the hell they did that. But I don't know how in the world they did that, but Syracuse lost to Ohio. Western Kentucky and Virginia. Vandy and Charlotte, a bad game. Wyoming and Baylor. Monroe at Toilet Bowl. Going Mississippi State. Pitt and UMass. A very big game. We might have that at Pitt. Washington State, Arizona State. See, Pitt is 4-1. They only lost to West Virginia, but West Virginia has 3 losses. UMass is 5-0. That'll be big. If Pitt wins, they might be close to solidifying to being up there. Syracuse and Penn State. That'll be big. Pitt needs to be ranked. Washington State, Arizona State, LSU, Iowa, Tennessee, East Carolina, Ohio and Cincinnati, Georgia and Jacksonville State. Should be Georgia. Sam Houston, North Texas, Northwestern Wisconsin. That'll be a solid game. USF, UAB. We'll see that one. Kansas, Nebraska. Big, big game. Oregon, Michigan. Huge, even though it's non-conference. It's playoffs. Memphis and Tennessee, Texas, San Antonio, West Virginia, Kansas State. Navy and BC. Kennesaw Toilet Bowl against App State. Rutgers will be playing Buffalo, possibly a Toilet Bowl. Arkansas against Minnesota, huge game there. Bowling Green against Kent. SMU Tulsa. Texas State and Houston. Texas State wins. They go to their conference championship. That'll be a miracle thing. South Carolina, Kentucky, Duke, Miami, South Alabama and Troy, not a good one. Notre Dame and Stanford, that'll be a good one. Ole Miss and Florida, that'll be great. JMU and Liberty, La Tech and Tulane, Boise State, Washington, might be an upset. UTEP, New Mexico State, Miami and Akron, Oregon State and Arizona, San Diego State, San Jose State, Colorado State Air Force, Colorado, Texas Tech, UCLA, Hawaii. All right. Well, that's all that we have. When you look at team schedules, a few of them. Let's take a look at Pitt. Pitt has UMass. Then they have Syracuse. If they beat UMass, then Syracuse, they are in. They have SMU, Virginia. That's it. Clemson and Louisville, those are all non-conference. So UMass and Syracuse, that Syracuse, might be for a position in the conference title. You're Penn State. You need to beat Syracuse. Then you play Ohio State. That would be huge. Then BC, which is a good game. Then Washington That might be for a playoff position. Then Purdue. A lot of teams are done by for team schedule. Last one, Texas State. Right here, they beat Texas and Texas A&M. Then they lost to Arkansas State, but they have Houston, and then they have Texas Tech. They got to be Houston this week. They're at Houston. Um, their only game they played on the road was at Rice. Every other game was at home. If they can beat Houston, they're there. Um, they're there if they can beat Houston. And then they will go to the conference championship. And then, oh my God, they did lose to Arkansas State, though. One last one. Ole Miss. They lost. Do they have a chance? They have Florida. If they win Florida, then they have Arkansas, then Georgia. Georgia's another one. I want to take a look at Georgia real quick. Um, Georgia, they lose to Clemson, but then they went on a tear against bad teams, and they haven't played a good team. They haven't played a good team since. So they have Jacksonville State, which is another bad team. They should kill them. And then they play South Carolina, and then they go Florida, Ole Miss. They beat those two, they're in. They beat those two, they're in. Georgia Ole Miss might be a playoff game. Then they play UMass. If UMass gets on a roll, this is UMass. This is the last one we want to see. UMass. UMass gets on a roll. You see they beat Temple, East Michigan, Buffalo, West Virginia by a point, Navy, Marshall, and then they got to play Pittsburgh. So if they beat Pitt, they got Liberty, and then they got Syracuse, which would be 7, and then UConn is their rival, is 8. But they got Georgia, and if they were to beat Georgia and Syracuse, maybe, but then they got Pitt. I think Pitt might take care of business. And if Pitt does, um, then Pitt just has Syracuse. And that's the biggest thing. We don't know if Pitt has to beat UMass, then Syracuse. If Pitt can beat UMass and Syracuse is 4-0. Syracuse plays Penn State next. They might be 4-1. Penn State would be 6-1. Then Pitt is 4-1. Syracuse at 4-1. They would be playing for the right to go into the championship. And then Virginia Tech, that's a big one. Then UMass, then Cal, who got rankings, Navy, then Miami. And I mean, if Syracuse wins out and they win their conference, they could make it, but you never know. All right, have a great day. We'll see you later.